was going to review Sherlock last year, but I decided to hold it off until I found the right time to talk about this show. Well, seeing as how Series 4 is coming on the 1st of January 2017, I decided I think now is the right time for me to talk about Sherlock. If I ever get around to start reviewing books, I will review the Sherlock Holmes books sometime after I'm done talking about The Hobbit as well as Lord of the Rings. I will promise you that. I was peer pressured into watching Sherlock, and now I can understand why. If there's anything about Sherlock that doesn't get talked about as much, and for understandable reasons, it is its production values. For a television series of this day and age, it's very high. The cinematography in this show is impeccable. Not to mention, some of the editing is quite funny. And I must add that this show has excellent fashion sense. Okay, I'm on the Sherlock bandwagon about the coat and scarf. Benedict Cumberbatch rocks in that coat and scarf. The one thing I actually think is nice that helps set this show apart from other adaptations of Sherlock Holmes is when Sherlock goes into detective mode when you see through his eyes, especially with all the words that pop up on the screen as well as some images that you get quick flashes of. Not only is Sherlock presented so very well, the acting is superb. I'm talking A+ acting. Do I even need to tell you about Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman in this show? They are outstanding. As for Benedict Cumberbatch, he is one of my favorite actors to play the character of Sherlock Holmes, even though he is portrayed as a high-functioning sociopath. Now, as for Martin Freeman, he plays a nice contrast to Benedict Cumberbatch in terms of writing and performance. When it comes to the characters, I need to make a big disclaimer before I talk about Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. I have begun reading the Sherlock Holmes books by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, starting with A Study in Scarlet, because A Study in Scarlet is, of course, the first Sherlock Holmes book. I have read about 3 or 4 chapters of A Study in Scarlet, and I'm enjoying it so far. But as far as Sherlock Holmes in literature, I know little about Sherlock Holmes in the literary sense. So my apologies if my credibility seems questionable now that I've brought that up. But again, I'm working on trying to read more Sherlock to get to know more about Sherlock Holmes in the literary medium. I also have not seen the Guy Ritchie films starring Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes, and my major exposure of Sherlock Holmes is through BBC's Sherlock. So I hope you can understand where I'm coming from when it comes to Sherlock Holmes as a whole. What I have noticed about Sherlock Holmes in BBC Sherlock is that Sherlock Holmes is badass. And since I mentioned that Martin Freeman is a great contrast to Benedict Cumberbatch's performance, the same pretty much applies to John Watson as a character when compared to Sherlock Holmes. They both serve as a nice contrast within each other. Before I talk about the plot, I do need to mention one thing that I bet you already know by now, and that is each episode of Sherlock is 90 minutes long. Yeah, 1 hour and 30 minutes at average. And that is why there are only 3 episodes per season. So I guess you could say that Sherlock is formatted in a way that you could say they are kind of like telefilms. The only downside to having Sherlock having 3 episodes per season, of course, is that there is a limited amount of time that that particular season airs, and then, well, we gotta wait for another season. However, the plus side is that the 90 minutes per episode format does make the 3 episodes per season less of a problem. In fact, not even a problem at all, because there is definitely a consistent quality control when they do it this way. Sure, the wait is the problem with the whole format, but again, in the long run, there really is nothing to complain about once the show does eventually end. The biggest praise that I have for Sherlock is its first episode, A Study in Pink. It has everything that I like in television when it comes to making a first impression. Introducing and establishing the characters, check. Establishing the settings, check. Proper editing, check. proper pacing, check. Proper directing, check. Believable acting, check. Setting the tone, check. And leaving me wanting more, check. I gotta tell it like it is, A Study in Pink is an outstanding episode and a great start for Sherlock. The Blind Banker is an episode that I initially perceived to be filler. That was until I saw how The Blind Banker ended. Now, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone that has not seen Series 1 of Sherlock, but if you have seen The Blind Banker, then you already know how that episode plays out. Now, I can understand if some viewers consider The Blind Banker to have a filler vibe in it, but considering that it is the second episode of the entire show, I actually am able to tolerate something that could be considered filler this early on. Series 1 of Sherlock concludes with the Great Game, which does start off like a typical Sherlock episode, but when the ball gets rolling, it is a suspenseful episode that will leave you wanting more. And I sure as hell knew I had to watch Series 2 right after watching The Great Game. Overall, Series 1 of Sherlock is a superb first impression. It has great writing, great directing, terrific acting, likable characters, and it left me wanting more. Even though this is a modernized adaptation of Sherlock Holmes, this show honors its source material, and this is just the beginning of a great television show, which leaves me with the deduction that I am going to give Series 1 of Sherlock a 10. If you like this review, feel free to hit the like button. And if you want to follow my channel, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. And as always, you're welcome to leave me a comment if you feel so inclined. And thank you for watching my review of Series 1 of Sherlock. And I will see you in the next review. Get your arse down. I don't want to. No. Put your arse down. I don't want to see it in front of my face. Got that? You listening? Arsehole.